For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Tabi Madiba. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss making the DA white again. Welcome, Professor. You suggest that the DA has become white again. Is this not an exaggeration?
You know, I got that, I cite the article from Mondli Makanya, who says about 6 months ago, let's make the DA white again. He's actually taking, he's parodying Trump saying, let's make America great again. And I think what happened is that the DA has been white all this time, but when there was a period when they were growing, when they thought, our weakness is we're not able to draw people, black people and Africans in particular, and it will be better for us if we have a leadership which is African. So they put Lindiwe Mazibuko there, and then she did something which irritated the madam, and then there was some conflict, and then she resigned. Then they handpicked Musi Maimane. Both of these people, by the way, have got qualities. But Maimane was never really allowed to lead. Helen Zille was supposed to have retired, but she didn't retire peacefully. She was always doing things which undermined his leadership. The colonialism tweets, a whole lot of these other things. And then she somehow gets, you see this, Maimane is a little bit naive when he gets this commission, comprised of people, except for the Capitec guy, who have been in the DA in the olden times, not olden times, but a few decades back, and they make a recommendation that Maimane must step down, and one of the reasons they say is he's conflict averse, that he's not willing to enter into conflict. Now, Tony Leon's style of leadership is very aggressive. Now, any person who wants to build a party must be willing to fight if necessary, but you've got to build a consensus as well. And I think that was what Maimane wanted to do, but the truth of the matter was that he didn't have the backing of a significant part of the party who, in the course of the growth of the DA, have come from the New National Party, a lot of others, so they're not all that loyal to someone like Maimane. So that when Helen Zille had her second coming, and she became federal chair, and there was a commission report recommending that Maimane should step down, really they were returning the DA to what it had been before, because they lost votes to white votes to the EFF plus in the last election, and I think they made a decision de facto that the most important thing is to retain the core support that they had, which was whites, and then they'll think about black votes later. So I don't think I was unfair in saying that they may be becoming white again. I don't think they ever did break completely, but the steps that they were taking have more or less made people like Maimane feel that he's not at home there, although there are other black people in the DA who feel that they can still make a difference, like Mbali and Tuli, people like that.
And the DA Commission following the 2019 elections and DA policy head Gwen Ngwenya suggests that emphasizing race is contrary to non-racialism. Why do you find this problematic?
You see, it's important to not emphasize race as the only thing that's important in everyone's lives. But in a country like South Africa, race is a very significant part of the reason why the people who are without houses, without water, all of these things are mainly black people. And that is historical, but it's also the continuation of the inequalities today. Now, it's correct to say, Gwenya says race is important, but it must not blow all the oxygen out of the room. Now, no one is suggesting that nothing else is important, because race coexists with cultural factors, with religious factors, with class factors, number of others. But in the history and the present of South Africa, race is an important marker of people who suffer disabilities and inequalities, who are marked out and criminalized. The way they police is they have a racial profile of who is likely to be a criminal. That is primarily black people and black areas. If I drive back here and there's a roadblock, I'm likely to just be waved on, whereas black people are pulled aside. And that's an example of the continuation of race thinking and racial profiling.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, you suggest that the DA may now be unelectable. Why is this so?
Well, in South Africa, given that the population is, the whites are such a small minority, if you give the sense that you are moving away from the baby steps that you took towards making the party, DA party, more racially representative, in the sense of not that you must have a quota necessarily, but that you give a face to the world which is not mainly whites. Even in the Maimane period, James Self was the federal chair, and you'd have him making really important statements. Maimane nowhere around there. Now, that never happened when Helen Zille had been leader before. So what I think is there's not a sensitivity in the DA on how you come across, that when people look at a party, they must say, that granny is like my granny. That brother there is like my brother. And they're not conscious of that. They speak just of merit. Now, what is merit? Is merit purely degrees, things like that? Because you must also take into account opportunities that people have, and your organization ought to be a training ground where you build up people's strengths. You take the experience. Experience in life is a strength, because if you know about the conditions in XY area, you can actually influence the manifesto to emphasize those things. Now, they're not thinking in that broad way, and consequently, I think they're going to disintegrate over time.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about making the DA white again.